You know what's strange? We talk endlessly about modern pet psychology. We dissect feline behavior like there's some kind of fascinating new science to it. But there's this entire historical worldview that just exists in the middle of our past, barely mentioned, almost invisible. The ancient Egyptian and Greco-Roman cats, living roughly between the dawn of the pharaohs and the fall of Rome. They're the creatures who guarded the granaries, the terrestrial manifestations of the divine, the beings who built the agricultural foundation of civilization but don't post about their breakfast. And here's what nobody tells you. Their psychology is probably the most misunderstood of any living species. They were the first generation of domestic guardians on a massive scale. Picture this. It's 56 BC. You're a Roman citizen visiting Egypt and you accidentally kill a cat. No smartphone, no way to call for diplomatic immunity, no way for anyone to check if you're okay. You are immediately surrounded by an incensed local populace, a lynch mob forming, and you wait. Historical accounts by Diodorus Siculus found that even King Ptolemy XII Auletes, desperate for Roman favor, couldn't save you from the crowd. That's an entire species learning that their mere physical existence carried the weight of the state. That lethal consequence did more than make the ancient feline self-reliant. It drilled in the idea that actions have real consequences, ones you can't talk your way out of. When the mob finally showed up, you always knew where you stood. The rules hit hard and fast. Nobody cared about your intentions or wanted to talk about it. Step out of line and harm a cat, and you paid for it right then and there with your life. Psychologically, this created what researchers call a high contingency environment, where actions and outcomes were directly linked without buffer time. Your brain learned to predict consequences in real time, which is why the ancient cat tended to think 3 steps ahead in ways that baffle modern pampered pets. Ancient cats grew up watching humans talk a big game about material stability, then turn around and sacrifice everything when a house fire broke out. They saw people give their all to their homes only to ignore the flames, forming human perimeters just to save the felines. Herodotus recorded that everyone told them, "You are the prerequisite for divine favor." But then the rules of mourning just changed right in front of them, depending on how they died. So yeah, psychologists might call it mandatory, ritualized grief, but the ancient cat, they just call it being realistic about their worth. It's not that they're cynical, exactly. It's more like they built up this emotional armor, knowing they were revered. They cross their paws for good things, but deep down, they expect the entire household to shave their eyebrows when they pass, because honestly, that's what kept happening. And that's a big reason you barely hear their true history on social media. They grew up in a time when supreme, stoic reverence was just normal. When you died as a cat, the whole town knew, and that was that. No phones, no viral videos, just some intense ritual depilation and burial in a sacred space. The idea of blasting their sacred afterlife out for strangers to see, that doesn't feel exciting to them. It feels risky. It's not about not getting modern attention. It's about learning early on that the less foreign nations know about you, the safer you are from illegal export. The ancient cat basically turned divine isolation into a shield. Catch a mouse, keep the black market smugglers at arm's length, hiss it off before it stings. You can see exactly where that comes from. They grew up in the shadow of imperial borders when pharaonic troops chased down foreign merchants who tried to steal them like it was just another rainy day. Military interceptions, as if border control would save the cult of Bastet. When adults act like everything's about to go up in smoke during a house fire, but also insist you shouldn't worry because they are blocking the flames, you get used to holding 2 clashing ideas at once, and you learn to keep a little distance just in case. But here's what's fascinating. Despite all this, the ancient cat developed a distinctive approach to their semi-divine status that stands out even today. They don't talk about it, they don't post about it, they just do it. This work ethic was forged early through roles that seem almost archaic now, hunting vipers at 5 in the morning, guarding the pharaoh's courts, acting as terrestrial proxies for gods where you had to calculate the exact strike in your head to maintain the divine order of Maat. These weren't just pet tricks, they were raw introductions to the cosmic world where a small feline could be responsible for delivering spiritual security to an entire empire. They watched their generation get strictly regulated by royal monopolies, requiring permits just to be in their presence. So they never believed in unearned human loyalty, but they're fiercely loyal to their own competence. They can't control whether they'll be mummified with a limestone sarcophagus like Prince Thutmose's cat, Ta Mew, but they can control whether they're the most valuable creature in the room when the afterlife preparations happen. There's this weird paradox at the core of ancient feline psychology. They're simultaneously the most independent creatures and the most quietly collaborative guardians. They'll never ask for help, figure out the traps themselves, been doing that since they were kittens. But if you need to keep a granary free of rats, they'll show up without drama, without a social media post about it. This comes from forming tight bonds with the household out of necessity when modern comforts were absent. And let's talk about their relationship with authority, because it's complicated. They respect competence, not titles. If you've earned your position through actual devotion, they'll follow you anywhere. If you're just someone with a fancy ownership permit who doesn't respect their divine status, they have zero patience. The ancient cat questions authority because they watched incompetent human figures make terrible decisions in Greco-Roman fables their entire existence. From underestimating their strategic patience in Aesop's The Tat and the Mice to foolishly suggesting they be belled, they faced serious intellectual headwinds that modern lapdogs haven't experienced. The youngest felines hunted right through the Ptolemaic dynasty's collapse. The oldest ones were hitting their stride when the Roman Empire took over. They've been mythologically traumatized repeatedly, which is why they're more likely to have multiple layers of defensive cunning. Not because they're malicious by nature, but because they've learned that human reverence doesn't last. The ancient feline tends to struggle with what some classical researchers have identified as patterns of self-reliance that border on divine anxiety. They're incredibly capable at handling crisis situations, seeing in the dark with luminous eyes. But that capability often comes from an unwillingness to depend on clumsy mortals. Historical observations in Plutarch's Moralia and Pliny the Elder's texts show that cats report lower levels of seeking human support during nocturnal hunts. Not because they don't have priests they could ask, but because asking feels like admitting defeat to the moon goddess herself. This self-reliance extended to how they processed the metaphysical world. Before modern veterinary science, natural intuition had a different kind of weight. The ancient cat spent hours in the shadows, waiting with a kind of innate intelligence that Alien argued exceeded that of humans. Their prowess had a physical cost. It required effort and time, and because of that, they valued their independence differently. Classical mythologists describe this as deeper cosmic encoding, where instinct that requires effort to hone becomes more permanently integrated into their very soul. They learned to fix pest problems with their claws because that's what you did when the grain was threatened or the vipers encroached. You didn't call an exterminator, you flipped the mouse upside down, got blood on your claws, and figured it out. This built a lethal intuition, a belief that with enough patience and a silent strike, you could master the physical world. And now they're watching their descendants grow up in a completely different world, one with helicopter pet parents and constant indoor supervision, and social media documenting every nap. We give modern cats the baby talk they never had, but sometimes the spirits of those ancient hunters worry we've made them too soft, too dependent, too visible. Because in the ancient feline worldview, being visible means being vulnerable to the hubris that turned Galanthus into a beast in Ovid's Metamorphoses.
The truth is, the cats of antiquity might be the last generation of animals that truly understands what it means to be a cosmic metric, to be stoic, to solve survival problems without humans intervening. They're not better than modern tets, just different, shaped by a unique moment in history when the old world of the gods was dying and the new secular one hadn't quite been born. They're the bridge generation, and bridges don't get much attention. They're just there, doing the work, holding the spiritual integrity of the household together, expecting nothing in return. And maybe that's the most ancient feline thing of all, not caring if anyone notices. If this hit home for you, please subscribe.